Hello and welcome to today's webinar about how to write a project plan. Um, yeah, I'm really happy that so many people joined us again today, and that was such a big group. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so we will get started right away. Some quick housekeeping rules. As you've already started, you can use the chat to talk with each other. There should be I can't see the Q&A box right now, but there should be a Q&A box as well. And that is for your questions for me. I have prepared around 45 minutes of presentation, maybe a little bit more, and then we have some time left for questions. So you can ask me some questions about the topic at the end, and it would be great if you could put those questions into the Q&A box so that I can see them. Otherwise, if it gets buried in the chat, sometimes it's very difficult for me to locate them and to find them in the end. I don't see the Q&A box in my dashboard at the moment, and I know Zoom has made some changes. So I hope it's there for you and that you can see it. Okay, it is there. I hope you can all see it. If not, you have to click on the three dots with more that say more, and then you find the Q&A box. I don't know why Zoom keeps changing the settings, which is really annoying because once they get used to something, then they change everything. Okay, you can all see it perfect. Even better. So you can use the Q&A box for questions for me so that I can find them, and you can use the chat to communicate with each other, network, etc. You do not have to give us your email address again because you will get the presentation, you will get the recording to the email that you've signed up for this webinar with. So you do not have to send us your email again. We already have that, and you will get a recording and the presentation afterwards. So don't worry about that. Yeah, and then we can get started right away with today's presentation. My name is Eva Wieners. I'm from Germany, and I have been working with Philantropia for, it's been a while. I think it's coming up on 10 years in different fields. I was living and working in Nepal for a long, long time, for 7 years, and I've worked with many grassroots NGOs there. And since I came back to Germany, I have done work with international and national NGOs and INGOs on all scales in the field of fundraising. My PhD is in geography, and I did my research about sustainability of project planning, so that kind of is my background. I see one comment that there's no translation. There should be, but again, I'm not familiar where you would have to click. Maybe my team could get onto that and check and see if they can give you some instructions in the comments, because there should be this, I think. I'm not 100% sure if that is enabled. I've tried to speak slowly, and you can at least you can have the what is that called? The undertitles. So maybe there's some way to translate this. If not, I'm very sorry. I'm not 100% sure if we have enabled that yet or not, because that, again, is a feature that doesn't always work perfectly on Zoom. But yeah, I hope you will find some way. Otherwise, I'm trying to speak slowly and clearly so that you can hopefully understand anyways. But if there is any way, maybe my team can get to that question as well in the chat. So yeah, let's jump right in. Today we'll talk about the project plan. If you have attended any of our webinars, you know that we believe that there are 5 main steps to fundraising success, 5 main obstacles, as we also call it sometimes, for people to overcome. And the center one is developing the project plan, or if you go one level above, developing the fundraising strategy. But today we are on the project level. We're talking about the project plan. So that is the center of everything. Developing a project plan should always be the very, very first step that you take when you want to start a new project for several reasons that we'll go through. But as you can see, it is the center for everything else. If you want to fundraise for your project, if you want to apply for grants, or even if you want to collect donations, you need to know exactly what you want to do with your project and what the what the needs are that you need to address. Because when you have a great project plan, this will inform your donor research, it will inform how you engage with donors, and obviously it will inform your proposal because it basically is your proposal. A project plan is not a full proposal, definitely not, but there's many, many parts of the project plan that you can use later for the proposal, that you can maybe even copy paste or just adjust with some minor changes. So the project plan is the base for everything else that you do concerning fundraising, and it's the first step that you have to take. That's why it is worth the time to focus on it and to invest time in it to to have a great project plan and to understand it properly. So yeah, today we'll talk about this first step, the project plan. What is a project plan? Just a simple definition. It's a comprehensive plan about what you want to do and how you want to do it. It describes the project you're planning with as much detail as necessary. So it forces you to gather information, and that I think is one of the most important things. I talk to many, many NGOs that are interested in working with us, contact us, etc. And many times they have great ideas, but those ideas are just ideas. They have not developed into the project stage yet because there's no detail put to it. People know who they want to work with. They kind of know what they want to achieve. They have ideas about how they want to achieve it, but it's not put together in a plan. There's no budget. There's no timeline. There's no proper ideas if things will work that way. There's no data to back anything up. And that is when you're still in the idea stage, which obviously you need because you need to collect ideas. You need to have ideas to develop great projects. But moving into that next stage where you can actually go and implement something, that is key. And that is super important to be able to fundraise for those projects, to be able to find funding sources for them, etc. So taking that time is a crucial step, and also a crucial step in the professionalization of your organization, because as long as you just have ideas, if you meet someone or if you ask for a proposal, you will have to do all that work, or you won't be able to tell them anything because you don't have the details yet. Why do you need a project plan? There's several reasons. But for example, to plan and understand eventualities and challenges. In my experience, when I was working in Nepal with a small organization, we had tons of ideas. We had so many things we wanted to do, but then sometimes when we got to that stage of actually planning for it, putting together a plan, we realized, oh, it's not possible the way we thought it would be, because either the budget was way higher than we expected it to be. We realized that we needed certain permits that were not available to us, or that were more difficult to achieve, etc. So those were some things that kept holding us back. And in that time, because I was just starting out, I made those mistakes that I sometimes talked to potential donors about ideas we had, not about actual projects. So in those cases, sometimes I kind of spoiled something. They were interested, and then once I put together everything, I realized, oh my God, the budget is double or triple than what I thought it would be, or it's not possible at all because we don't have that permit. We can't get the permit. It's way more complicated, etc. So once you write everything down, you understand what the situation is, what are eventualities, how can you plan for them. It helps you to get organized because you have to gather information. You have to gather, for example, budget information. How much do things actually cost? And sometimes it's way more than we think. We had a couple of construction projects that turned out to be way more expensive than I thought because prices had changed since I had done my research last time. Transportation was more expensive, etc. So it forces you to get organized and gather all that information. Also about staff, you need to know who would do this. Do we have staff that could implement this project? Do we need to hire someone new if we get the project? All of these things you need to put together, you need to gather, and you need to find information on. Yeah, it forces you to gather that information, which is great because it moves your project from being an idea to actually being a project. And later, all this information is a great base for fundraising or doing your donor research. And obviously also for writing your proposal. Because again, a project plan, if you write a project plan, that's not a proposal that you can just simply send out and win a grant with, usually. You always have to adapt it to the donor's requirements. You have to do some things differently. A proposal often is written for a different audience than a project plan, so it needs maybe a bit more emotion, less technical terms, etc. But you have the base for all of that. You have all the data, everything is collected. So if you write a great project plan, then it's much easier for you to write a great proposal later, because you already have all that information put together. So it's a great base. And again, when you start doing donor research with an idea, you might find donors that are not a good fit because you don't know exactly how much money you need. You don't know what kind of activities you want to fund, etc. It also helps you to avoid mission creep, which I think is very important. Mission creep is something that happens when you only write proposals for donors and not for 100% for the projects that you want to do. So when you start, for example, finding a call and thinking, oh, maybe we can do something for this call and then develop a project that is a perfect fit for this call, but not necessarily a perfect fit for your organization. But because you think, oh, the donor wants to fund this kind of work, you kind of move into that direction. So that can be tricky in the long run. And it should be avoided at all costs because you should ideally only do work that contributes towards your theory of change, that is aligns with your strategy, and then find donors that can sign up to that, but not do whatever the donors want and thus kind of watering down your own strategy, your own theory of change. And writing a project plan before you go out and look for donors actually also helping you with that, because this way you can focus in the project plan, you can focus on what you actually want to do and what your priorities are, what is the best for you. And then with that information, you go out and start looking for someone who can support you in that. If you don't have a plan and go look for donors first, the probability that you will change up your plan for a donor is much higher. So don't write proposals just for the donor. Try to have a project plan and then look for a donor so that you stay true to what you want to do. Don't try things out of your scope of work that you have defined for your organization just because the donor has some money for it or because it's trendy or whatever. Trust your knowledge and your connections with the communities to avoid donor mission creep, because you know what is needed. And if a donor says, no, we want to fund something else, well, then it's kind of your position to lobby and say, but in the community we work with, we know that that is not needed. It's something different that they need. And you ideally would stand up for them and help them so that they can actually get there. Do what you're good at and what you know is needed, and stay true to your own mission. And I think, again, developing a project plan before you go out looking for donors is really, really helping with that. When you have a project plan, it can also help you to find more potential donors and to find more, to find donors that come in from a different perspective. Because if you have one project, a proper plan written for it. If it's, let's say it's an education project, you can contact donors that fund education, um, obviously, but you can also contact donors that work with children. You can probably also contact donors that work to extend labor opportunities. There's so many different kinds of donors that you could approach, but when you have this project plan ready, it's much more easy to see all the different kinds of donors that could play a role, because then you can kind of take your project and turn it and look at it from different sides. If you just have an idea, in my experience, that is much more difficult. Because it's much more difficult to gain that perspective and to have the ability to look at it from different sides. So having that project plan first, again, helps you with that, and makes it easier to find more different kinds of donors that can come in from different perspectives and different sides. So the project plan basically covers 4 questions, and we'll look at all of them in detail. The first question is, who are we and what do we have to offer? Kind of giving some background to the project plan. Second part talks about, why is the project necessary? What is the issue? What's the problem that you want to solve? That the communities need to solve, that you need to work on to get some progress. The third question is, what's the impact? So what will change in the lives of the people that you work with? And only the fourth one is, what is your actual plan? What are the steps that you want to take, the activities you want to do? So many times when we ask for a plan, we only get the fourth part. But a full project plan covers all of those 4 questions. And as you can see, the structure is very similar to a proposal, because a proposal will ask very similar questions. They also need to understand who you are, what your background is. They want to understand why the project is necessary and what the impact will be. And then the actual plan, the steps that you have to take, that is just the last part. And sometimes that is even the, I don't want to say least important part, but it's a part that is not that important often, because, well, it is important, obviously. People need to understand what exactly you want to do, how you want to do it. But those first parts are also super important, because if the people don't understand what the reason behind your project is, why is it necessary, and what is the change that you will you will achieve in the communities that you work with, then it doesn't matter what your plan actually is, because they need to, if they don't understand the reasoning behind your actions, then they won't be very interested in working with you. So you really need to focus on those first parts as well and have a very, very good explanation. But we will look in detail at those 4 questions now, so that you get a clearer understanding of where they're leading. So the first part, again, talks about, who are you and what do you have to offer? And it basically answers the question, why are you a good partner? Because later, when you use this in a proposal, this is something that people want to know. Why should they work with you? Why should they choose you and support you and your work? What do you bring to the table? What do you have to offer? And this is important to cover in a project plan already, because you always need an explanation and a framing of why you are the perfect partner to implement this project, and not someone else, or not a different organization or agency. So the basic questions you cover here is your theory of change. What is your idea for changing changing attitudes, changing lives of people? What do you think your work fits? Yeah, in which frame fits your work? What are you good at? What are your skills? Who are your partners? What's your experience? What's the difference between you and others? And in the end, why are you a good partner? Those are the main questions. So again, the first one is the theory of change. The theory of change describes the way that you think you will make a change in society, in the lives of people, in communities, etc. It describes your mission, what you want to achieve, and how you want to achieve that. So it kind of describes the way that you want to achieve change. Obviously, it's important that, first of all, the project fits within that, and that somebody who reads your project plan understands how you think you will achieve that change and where you want to go. So obviously, this needs to be part of this section where you explain who you are and what your background is. Then you also cover what you are good at, obviously. What do you bring to the table as skills? And this could be experiences that you had in the past. I think we have a slide about that as well, but also what your staff is good at, what your skill set is within the organization, what can you do very well? Do you have, well, we talk about past experiences. If you've won grants and managed grants very well, that is a good thing to state. Or if you've won prizes, whatever it might be. What are you good at? What is your experience? This is something that you have to describe in this section. Who are your partners? Who works for you and with you? So for you, obviously, usually would be staff members. Maybe you can describe a bit the skill level, what they've learned with you, what they bring to the table. But also if there's any other agencies, if there's your partners that you have maybe implemented projects with in the past, if any government agencies work with you, big NGOs, INGOs, whoever is your partner and was happy to work with you and had a good time with you, you can show off in this section as well. Who is on your team and who's on your side? That is what you stress here, because all of that feeds into the answer to the question, why you? Why are you a good partner? What is your experience? Did you work with similar projects like this in the past? Did you implement any projects like this? Do you have experience working with that community, within that country, in that area of work, etc.? What is the experience that you bring to the table, and what are the things that you can contribute? And again, this shows if you already have implemented a project like this successfully, that you are a great partner. Again, that's the question that we want to answer here. And then, if that's possible, maybe also what distinguishes you from others. So where are you different? What's different about your approach? What's different about your organization? Things like, for example, if your organization is completely women-led, if you have many people from the target group as members or on the board, etc., that could be something special. Or if you have a very different structure, if you work with apps, etc., whatever the special thing about your organization is, what makes you different? Why do you think you are a better fit to implement this specific project than a different organization, maybe from your community or from somewhere else? So oftentimes it's just the knowledge that you have of the circumstances that you want to work in, because either you're from the same community, maybe that's your background, maybe you have people from the community you want to work with on your team, maybe you have a lot of experience working with this group or in this community, etc. Whatever it is, you can also state it. So all of this together answers the question, why are you the perfect partner? Why you? Because whoever reads this should be convinced that for this project, for this particular work, you are the organization that surely can implement this project and is the perfect partner. The next question that the project plan should answer is, why is the project necessary? So as you can see, this is like the justification. of the project. And that is something that you definitely need to describe in the project proposal, because that is something that donors also want to understand. What is the issue that you want to solve? Super, super important. Question is, why is the project necessary? So first you would start off with stating the problem. What is the problem that you want to solve? And again, here, oftentimes we have to take a step back because when we work with a problem within a community, maybe we're part of this community, some things for us are super clear cut, and we think, or we might think, that everybody can have this clear understanding of the issue, but that often is not the case. So oftentimes we need to explain from the very beginning what the problem is and why it is a problem, and also explain maybe connections that are super clear to us, but maybe not so clear to someone else. And again, this section is so important because if a donor doesn't understand why the project or the problem that you want to solve is a problem, then why should they bother even reading your proposal? So that's why you also should focus on this in the project plan already, to understand exactly what you want to solve and why you choose the measures you're choosing to solve this. So what is the issue is the very, very first question. Again, I have many examples where I wasn't able to explain this properly, and I'm sure this is why my proposal failed in the past, especially when I was starting out, because I didn't understand how important this is. But it is crucial because, again, it doesn't matter if you perfectly describe your project and every single step, every single thing that you want to do later on. If you're not able to explain properly why that issue needs solving, then nobody will even get to that part, kind of. In this section, you also describe who's your target group, who's your target population that you want to work with. So who are the people or the environment, the community that will work directly and indirectly with your project. Who is influence, who are stakeholders. This is also something that you should cover. Who are the people that have a say in implementing this project and can either help you or maybe also hinder the project being successful. So that needs to be covered as well. Something that you can describe, it's not needed, but in this section can come up, is how did you get the idea for this project? Because oftentimes how you got the idea explains very well what the problem is, because you only get an idea for a project if it's a true problem. So that is very, very closely connected. What is the current situation? What has already been done? Who is doing it? How are they doing it? And does anybody address this issue? This is something that you should also talk about in this section, because it explains, first of all, it shows that you have a high degree of knowledge about the issue, if you also know others and other organizations that work with it and try to solve it. And it also shows that you see this whole thing in context and you're not kind of looking at it only isolated from your point of view. And what are the effects of the problem? Because usually you have a problem and the problem, we'll look at the problem tree in a moment, but the problem has causes and effects. So what happens because of this problem? Sometimes we get a bit confused here and things are not distinguished properly, but this really helps if you think, what is the problem that you want to solve and what happens because of that problem? So for example, if you want to, the problem you want to solve is kids not attending school. Well, that is the problem. And then the effects of that problem would be kids getting bad grades, not finishing high school, not having a degree, and then later on not getting a good job. And then maybe even higher than that, situation of the community doesn't improve, etc. So just thinking about what happens because of that problem that you want to address. Looking at the target group, we have kind of three different groups here. Stakeholders are people that are involved with your project or that have any stake in it, that could have any influence in the community. So they don't need to be directly involved. They don't need to take part or talk to your project, but they would be, for example, politicians, political parties, other organizations, government agencies, schools, etc. Organizations or important people that do have a say and that could potentially hamper the success of your project, but that are not directly necessarily involved with your project. In a proposal, you don't need to explain who stakeholders are, but it's very good to describe them in the project plan, because oftentimes if you ignore them completely, they can actually be a danger to the success of your project. So understanding who they are and showing that you know who they are is actually really helping you to write a good project plan. And then we have the direct and indirect target group that you should also describe at this stage already. And as you see, this is something you can use in the proposal later, because that is, those are numbers that you have to come up with in the proposal stage anyways. The direct target group are people who are directly involved with your project, that directly work with your project, come to your meetings, attend your trainings, receive the stuff that you distribute, whatever your project does. They are in direct contact with your project. That's the direct target group. Indirect target group are people that are not in direct contact with your organization, but still benefit from the project in some kind of way. So these could be family members. For example, if you train farmers, the farmers themselves would be the direct target group, and the families of the farmers who also benefit because they would get different crops, maybe the farm work will be more efficient, etc. So the family members would also benefit, but they don't actually attend your training, so they're not direct beneficiaries. Those two groups should be described here, and again, if you can, if you have a good understanding of stakeholders, that also really helps. There's this method of the problem tree to understand a problem better. I really like that for project planning, because it really helps you to understand what the actual issue is that you want to solve, what the effects of this issue are, and what the causes are. So here you see it's a picture of a tree with roots, and the trunk, the tree trunk, is the problem. This is where you put the problem that you want to solve with your project. So you can use this methodology in your organization for your next project and just try it out, because it's super helpful if you do that as a group exercise together. So where the trunk is, you put the problem that you want to solve. And in this case, they have the problem for the target group and the problem for the society. So even two different levels of problem, but you can also go with one, which would probably be the problem for the target group that you work with. So this sounds super easy, but actually is a difficult definition to make, because what is actually the problem that you want to solve? Often we can describe our projects with many words, but to specifically say this is the one problem we want to solve is difficult. So have a discussion in your team to see if you're actually all on the same page here. Because again, if you stick with the example of the school, you could say the problem is that the problem is kids don't go to school, or the problem is kids don't have low education level, or the problem is people don't earn enough. Those are the same kind of tree, but it's a different level. You can put the trunk on different spots, because then when you have the problem, at the bottom, you have the causes of the problem. What are the causes for this to happen? So for example, if your problem is kids don't go to school, the cause for that maybe is they have to help in the farm. They have no transportation. They have no money for school lunch. Those could be the causes of the problem that you want to solve, kids not going to school. So at the bottom, you put all the causes. And again, going through this really helps you to understand the problem on a bigger level, not just focusing on this one small thing and just thinking of one thing, but thinking holistically to understand the full extent of the problem that you want to solve. And the top part of the tree are the effects of the problem. What happens next? So because kids don't go to school, they have a low education level and maybe don't get a good job. Because kids don't go to school, whatever, domestic abuse is not caught because kids don't show up. Because kids don't go to school, there's no trust relationship between school and parents. Whatever the causes are in your circumstances, but the top of the tree describes the causes, the things that are caused by the problem. And again, writing all of this down gives you a very, very deep understanding of the issue you want to solve, and really also helps you to kind of craft and design your interventions. Because the better you understand the problem, the better you're going to be able to solve it. So, as I said, in the middle and the trunk, you would put the core issue, the problem that you want to solve. And again, when you then write the text form of your project plan, this gives you the vocabulary. You can kind of describe the tree, and it really gives you a good description of the project. The core issue needs to go on the trunk. And again, it's not that easy. If you have a discussion later with your team or in your next meeting, maybe discussing about what is the core issue that you want to solve, it's sometimes not that easy, because you can go on different levels, but it is important for an organization that everybody's on the same page. There's no right or wrong here. You just need to agree what the core issue is that you want to attack and solve. As I said, the roots are the causes of that problem. So what causes the issue that is the trunk? What are the things that lead towards it? And you would always start with something, yeah, very broad on the bottom, and then get more specific towards the trunk, and then actually get to the things that cause this problem. And the top are the effects of that problem. What happens because of this? So kids don't go to school, again, so that's why they don't earn more, they don't finish high school, they don't have a degree, etc. So what happens next? When you use this method, it's important that you cover everything. Of course, you won't be able to tackle everything with your project, but to first have a very good and holistic understanding of the full extent of the issue that you want to work with, you have to cover everything and try to describe the whole issue. And then in the next step, you would get to the solutions tree. If you have designed the problem tree, you can kind of flip those things and then have a solutions tree. Because if the issue you want to solve is kids not going to school, and one of the reasons, one of the causes is there's no proper transportation to school and the road is very bad, then if you flip that and say there's good transportation to school and the roads are good, then kids would go to school, right? Because if you have identified that cause for this issue, then fixing the cause should fix the issue. So you would write the full tree, the whole tree, and kind of flip every single statement, and that leads you to a solution tree. Because usually if you understand the causes, that should lead you to a good solution. And again, if you put every root cause, every single one, you have a holistic understanding of the whole issue. Obviously, you wouldn't, with your project, you wouldn't try to fix everything. If you're not working with a super narrow issue, usually that it's way too much and you wouldn't be able to fix everything. So you choose something. So in this example, they've chosen to kind of tackle with their project only the green boxes. So they lined it extra in green. So you could do that as well. So yeah, this way you get a very good idea on how you can fix the root causes of the issue. And probably you know that already, because that's how you design your project anyways. But writing it down this way really, really helps, and really really, gives you a holistic view. And when you describe this whole thing, also makes sure that people who read your project plan understand what the issue is. So this again, this method helps really, really much here. So I recommend you try that with your team. And even if you don't come up with a perfect solution, the discussion you have to get there are super helpful and valuable for your project work as well. So then we get to the next part, which is what will be the impact of your project. It's super important. Also to understand that for the proposal later, donors always talk about impact-driven projects. They want to see impact. They want to understand what changes in the lives of people that they work with or that you work with. So focusing on the project results and the impact is crucial. Usually you have 3 categories that describe the results of your project. You have output, outcome, and impact. The output is kind of short term, is what happens as a direct result of things you do, of the activities that you do. So when you finish one activity in your project, what happens next is the output. So if you put it very simply, if you train people, then the output of that is people are trained because they went to the training and that happened next. The outcome is kind of midterm. The outcome is what people then decide to do with what you have given them. So if you give a training, people decide what they want to do with the things they learned. That's the outcome. Maybe they've changed their attitudes, maybe they're able to change their behavior, and thus maybe they're even able to change their living circumstances in the long run. That is outcome. It's kind of midterm. And impact is the long-term change that happens in society because of your project. It's very difficult to measure. It's a scientific term that it's difficult to say that you have impact because usually there's more than one factor that contributes towards that impact. But again, it's the word that you would use is to contribute towards this impact, because ideally your project has some part in hopefully reaching that goal at some point. Here's another way to kind of structure those results. And you see, and maybe you already made that connection in your head, a log frame looks very, very similar to this, has the same structure. So if you look at our courses about designing a log frame, you will see a similar structure because the log frame describes the exact same thing. So again, here you develop something in your project plan that if you do it well, you'll be able to use the results of this later when you have to fill out a log frame or in the proposal describe your projected results. So this is not double work that you're doing, it's actually preparation work for something you would have to do anyways later. So if you put it this way, at the bottom of the pyramid you have the activities. So the things that you do within your, or you plan to do within your project to achieve results. Those are the things that, like a training you run, something you distribute, a meeting you hold, etc. Then next is the output, the goods and services provided by the project. So the trainings that have happened, the things that you have distributed, then the output of that would be people received something, people took part in a training, people learned something, etc. Those 2 things are controlled by your project. You can control if you do those activities, if you implement them. You can control if the training happens. You can control if you distribute goats or whatever you do. That is within your control. Then the outcome and impact is controlled by the target group, not by you anymore. Because if you can teach somebody something, but the decision if they use that knowledge to change their lives is theirs. It's not your decision. So that is out of your hands. So the outcome and impact is out of your hands and is controlled by the target group. The outcome, as I said, describes the midterm behavior change of the target group, and the impact is the long-term result, long-term impact that the project only contributes to. And that usually is a change on the society level, so very, very high, high level, and some big goal that your project only does like a little step towards. So these are the results, and this describes what the changes are that your project wants to achieve. So how should the life of people look different after your project, and with so this describes what you want to achieve with your project, what the changes are in the lives of people that work with you. See if I have more here. Yeah, so to describe these different categories, there's some buzzwords that you can use and that you can keep using and reuse. So when you describe activities, you would use verbs like we prepare, design, conduct, construct, because those are the things that you do within your project. When you describe outputs, you would use words like delivered, produced, conducted, because those are things that that you did within your project, that happened. The outcome is midterm. So describe something that should have happened within the target group later. So the buzzwords that you would use here to describe that are increased, improved, because something they've learned something and thus changed their living conditions, changed their attitudes, etc. And the impact, you would only use the word to contribute to, because again, that is a huge goal on the society level that your project can definitely not reach or achieve by itself. And one last look at this again, because this is an important part, and this is something that in the proposal later will also be crucial, that donors understand what your plan is here. There's something called the results staircase that has been developed by an organization here in Germany that is used widely within foundations in Europe now. The bottom, the first 3 steps of results, of things that change when you implement your project, would be activities are carried out as planned, the target groups are reached, and target groups accept offers. So that's the output, what is under your control. Step 4, 5, 6 are they change their attitudes or develop new skills, they change their behavior, and then change their living conditions. That's the outcome at the level of your target group. So those are the changes that happen in their lives. And the impact is that society changes. So that's the highest level. And following these steps, and think through for your own project, okay, what with the project I'm planning, that I'm writing a project plan for, what are the activities that we want to carry out? Okay, then how can we make sure target groups are reached? How can we make sure target groups accept the offers? And what happens? What is the change in attitudes or the new skills that we want to achieve, etc.? If you try to think through that and fill that out for your own organization, again, that really helps you to get structure into this and to understand what the impact is of your project and how this all kind of belongs together, and how one is based on the next. And then the last part, again, which I already said, is obviously still important, but maybe not the most important part, is what do you actually want to do? What are the activities, the steps that you want to take to achieve that impact? And to do all those things, to address the issue that you have described. So here you would really get down to describing your activities. So we want to do a training, we want to run a workshop with parents, we want to we want to distribute school supplies, whatever it is that you actually want to do. This is what you describe in this part, the actual nitty-gritty of your project work. Usually you have activities, sometimes they're grouped together under one strategy. So for example, a strategy could be to reach out or to run workshops. A strategy could be to build infrastructure. A strategy could be to work with decision makers, etc. So often activities are grouped under strategies. If you want to learn more about this specifically, I recommend our webinars about the proposal development, because we go into more detail there. But in this last part of the project plan, you really describe what you want to do with your project step by step. And with this, you get to the end. This gives you an action plan of the things that you do want to do. And then you have the 4 parts together that, first of all, explain who you are, why you're a good partner. Then it explains in detail what the issue is that you want to solve. It explains what the impact will be your project will have. And then it gets to the detailed level of explaining how you want to actually achieve that impact. And all of that together gives a perfect sense of what your project wants to do and how you want to do it. Of course, you also have to add a budget and a timeline so that you have detailed information on where to go next and what to research for. But that oftentimes comes much more easily once you've gotten to that point where you already have described all the steps, you have a thorough and holistic understanding of the issue, and then finding out about the budget and finding out about the timeline is only one more step along the way. So after you've done all this, what would be the next steps? Well, finalize the project plan, obviously, go through all the steps, have those discussions with your team, and then you can start your donor research with the different perspectives and target groups in mind. So maybe you work with different target groups, so you can contact different kinds of donors. Maybe you work with different areas. Like I said, an education project can be also a labor project, can also be a kids and youth project, or can be interesting for donors that fund those kinds of projects. So you can take all those different perspectives. Your donor research will be much more focused because you know exactly what you're looking for. And if you've ever attended any of our webinars about donor research, we always repeat how important it is to be precise, to choose the right donor, because if you choose the right partner, your chances of success are much, much higher. But obviously, to be able to choose the right partner, you also need to know what would be the right partner, because you need to know what do you want. What is exactly what you want to implement? Then you can use the project plan as a base for proposals. Obviously, we've seen that there's so much overlap, that there are so many things that you've already researched that you don't have to research again, that you can use. But also remember that obviously every proposal is different. Every time you write a proposal, it needs to be adjusted, and you really need to reflect what a donor, any specific donor, wants to see. With that, we come to the end of the presentation. I see there's a couple of questions. Just a reminder that we do offer many courses on different topics, for example, on the log frame that I've been mentioning today, or also the full course on all those 5 obstacles that we have identified. You can find them all on our homepage, philantropia.org. There's a couple of free courses as well that you can take, like one free course about donor research, the elevator pitch, looking at an I90PF, etc. But also very specific courses like about the log frame, donor research, European foundations, etc. So check out those courses if you're interested in learning more. I think we also have a coupon code that should go out with the email. With the coupon code fundraise, you can get all courses are all courses off 35%. So the coupon code is fundraise. It's also in the comment box at the moment. If you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch with us. And yeah, with that, we are through. Okay, and now I've seen there's a couple of questions that I will see if I can answer them. There's one question about the problem tree. Can you send more details on how to conduct a problem tree in a more simple way? I think the way is simple. Maybe I've gone through it too quick, but I think we also have webinars, free webinars available on our YouTube channel where I spend much more time on the problem tree because today was one part in this whole presentation. I think we have more information in some of our free webinars. You can check our YouTube channel where we have tons of webinars that we've done in the last 1 or 2 years with many topics that are very similar to that. In practical terms, how would you advise an organization uses the project plan to actualize its strategic plan? Well, I think you don't, well, it depends a bit on how you work, but I think the project plan shouldn't really inform your strategy. The strategy should inform the project plan. If you look at the strategy of your organization at that level, you should really it should like the project plan should fit within the strategy. The strategy is kind of set because it describes the way you want to go about things. It describes your theory of change, etc. So it should be set to a degree, and the um, the project plan should fit within that. Yeah, I hope I'm making myself clear here. It obviously it should fit together, but I think the project plan should be a project that fits within your strategy. And then the kinds of projects you want to implement obviously will inform the kind of donor research you do, etc., the steps that you have to do in donor research, in reaching out, in your fundraising strategy. But that would be the next step then. Mm. How do you know whether the changes, the outcome, and the impacts brought by the project were there, or because of any other projects? Well, with the impact, you never know. You cannot claim impact for yourself. I can guarantee that. But with the outcome, usually you would have an opportunity to be sure here. Because the outcome, you should be able to, for example, with questionnaires and just yeah asking people what usually that should be part of the evaluation as well to try to figure out through questionnaires, through surveys, through looking at people, etc. Um, if people are using what they learned, if people have changed their circumstances, etc. But yeah, long term, it's very, very difficult to be able to claim, okay, this is what we did and not what any other organization did. That's why you should, when you describe the impact, use the word contributed to, because you can say, yes, we contribute to that, but you can never say we did that. Because if it's long term and at that level, we just simply often don't know what contributed towards that and as well. Um, There's some questions very, very specific to steps for fundraising. I recommend you check out again our YouTube channel. We have for example, one webinar about how to start fundraising for small NGOs, for small things, etc. That is very helpful, or just how to go about the engagement strategy. I think that would be very helpful to see. How can I precisely define the root cause of the problem? I would like to address, well, it's research. I think you need a thorough understanding, and then you have to do some research, see if you find any sources, any studies, any papers that address this to figure out what the exact causes are of the issue you want to solve. It's not a definition; it's facts that you have to find, and that you can often find through studies or just researching more. Um, The project proposal is a skeleton of a project plan. I would say it the opposite way. The project plan is a skeleton of a project proposal, if you want to put it that way, because the project plan should be there first. It's the base, it's the center, and kind of the meat around it you have to change for every donor, and that is things that change. But the base should be the project plan that you start with. Mm. And then there's one last question. Um, What is the difference between the project context, rationale, and justification? Rationale, and justification, I think, is often the same. So why is the project necessary? Why do you want to address this issue? What is the reasoning behind it? And the context is similar, but I think maybe asks for a little bit more. More context, more additional information around it. Maybe it's a little bit broader, but I think in general, those three describe something very similar, which is why is this project necessary? What is the issue? Why is the problem that you want to solve a problem? And again, when we work in these fields, sometimes for us it's so clear cut. So we don't even want to explain it, or we don't understand why we have to explain it. But for a donor who's not an expert and who's maybe just started working with this issue, they need an explanation. Okay. I think those were the questions in the Q&A box that I've seen. Thank you so much for attending. We have another webinar next week about how to write a project proposal. I think it's yeah, if I would only know. If I knew my own schedule, on the 21st, same timing. So it would be great if you would be there as well. And then we can talk a bit more about the project proposal, the parts, and everything that you should add in there. Thank you so much for attending today, and I hope I see you again next week. Bye bye.